like beer? Do you love sports and beer? Then you're exactly where you need to be. This is the Huebs, Views, and Brews show on 1252 Sports Chicago. Cheers.
Hello and a happy Monday to, well, I was going to say White Sox and Cubs fans, but it's not really a happy Monday for either of them as we get another week started in baseball. We are going to have some Bears talk, and why not? The Bears and Ryan Pace actually did some things right in the NFL draft, so we're going to talk about that as well as we do each and every week here on Huebs, Views, and Brews. And we'll get into the White Sox story in just a second, but I got to pop another for the second week in a row. Got to pop another one of the Goose Island White Sox Golden Lagers. And this is almost like a guy crying in his beer. Because yesterday, it was Chicago Symmetry yesterday. You had Ian Happ and Luis Robert, both guys that play center field for the respective teams here in Chicago, going down with injuries. Now, Ian Happ doesn't seem to be nearly as serious as Luis Roberts, but both center fielders went out. This on a day that Ian Happ actually had 3 hits. So, but for the White Sox and Luis Robert, before the season, it was Eloy Jimenez going down. Why is it my team can't have nice things? You get Eloy Jimenez. You get Luis Robert. You get all this stuff. You got Michael Kopech a couple years ago. He goes out with Tommy John surgery. It's like the White Sox can't have nice things. I know Cub fans are actually regaling in the White Sox woes, and we'll talk a little bit about some Cub fans and a question. I put something on Twitter earlier today. Waddle and Sylvie were talking about Luis Robert going down, and Sylvie said something that shocked the hell out of me. And I know FatMike has told me I could swear, and it was a perfect time to say shocked the something out of me, but I'll stick with hell. Shocked the hell out of me. So I mentioned it on Twitter, and I've gotten nothing but comments since. So we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But for those who don't know, let me take a sip first. The White Sox lose 2 out of 3 to Cleveland. Now, they scored 3 runs off Shane Bieber, last year's American League Cy Young winner. So you figure you score 3 runs off a Cy Young winner, you should do pretty well. They didn't have enough. Could not win. They win on Saturday. They could not win on Sunday. So they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Cleveland Indians. Right now, the White Sox have a 15-12 record. But in the game yesterday, Luis Robert hustling to get down to first base, looked like he stubbed his toe on the way down there, and then was hobbling, was writhing on the ground in pain. He has a grade 3 strain of the hip flexor muscle. Now, a grade 3 strain sounds bad until you realize that a grade 3 strain is a tear. Okay? So that means he is going to be out 12 to 16 weeks. He cannot begin any baseball activities for 12 to 16 weeks. That's crazy. 4 months, who knows what's going to happen after that? How long will it take to get ready? He's going to be pretty much on the same schedule that Eloy Jimenez is right now. So the White Sox lose their left fielder in Eloy Jimenez in spring training, and now they lose Luis Robert for 4 weeks. Rick Hahn's got to figure out what to do. Rick Hahn saying it's difficult. It's obviously very difficult. No kidding there. The other thing that Rick Hahn said was that it doesn't matter if there's surgery required to fix this tear or just rest and rehabilitation. He's going to be out for the same amount of time. So no matter what happens, he's going to be down for 12 to 16 weeks. So you say, okay, well, that's perfect. You just move Adam Engel to center field. That's been my answer all along. Adam Engel coming back from an injury. For the second time, Adam Engel has had a setback in his rehab. And he is 3 weeks away from any baseball activities, 3 weeks away from a rehab assignment. So you figure that's almost a month. So now you've got a month. That's a pretty big month in May. You're going to play the Twins. You're going to play the Royals, both home and road for Kansas City. You need to play well. So Rick Hahn, no doubt, is going to have to go on out and get somebody. You look at Luis Robert this year, hitting .316. I got to give him credit. I was the guy questioning Luis Robert. I did it before the season started. I was not sure he would be able to hit because of what he did last year in the second half of the season. Had a great first 30 games. Second 30 games, he struggled badly, and did not look good in the playoffs when they played Oakland last year. This year, 316, on base just 359, not walking a lot. He's got 1 homer and 8 runs batted in, a couple errors in the outfield. But you lose Luis Robert with a hip injury. He is down now 12 to 16 weeks. Let's just say 3 to 4 months. It's a little bit easier that way. So the White Sox are going to have to do something. Now, what I heard Sylvie say on ESPN 1000 this afternoon is, does Rick Hahn pick up the phone and call Jed Hoyer and say, listen, how about Kopech for Chris Bryant? Bryant can play a corner outfield, and we'll move someone to play center field. And I go, are you crazy? Why would the White Sox move Michael Kopech, who they've waited 2 years for? Michael Kopech had Tommy John surgery, so he did not pitch in the 2019 season. And then the 2020 season, Michael Kopech was out because he decided to sit out because of COVID and some things he was going through. He was going through a divorce and some other things. Why would the White Sox move Michael Kopech, especially for Chris Bryant? Now, Chris Bryant's got some good numbers right now. His slash line, 323 average, 405 on base, and a 708 slugging percentage. His OPS is 1.114. Really, really good. And he's playing well right now. He's hitting the ball. Got 9 home runs, hit 2 home runs the other day, 9 home runs, 22 RBIs. But here's the thing. You're not going to give up one of your future pitchers in Michael Kopech that you've waited for a guy you're going to lose. So as a White Sox fan, I'm thinking there's no way you give up Kopech to get a guy like Chris Bryant who's going to be gone at the end of the year. Some of the reasoning people have is that, well, this is a year you're trying to make the playoffs. You're going to go the next step further. After making the playoffs last year. No. You got all these guys signed for long-term deals. Eloy's going to be here for a while. Luis Robert here for a while. Tim Anderson here for a while. You just re-signed Jose Abreu for 3 years. Some of these other guys are out there. Michael saying, what about reaching out to Puig? Puig is a troubled, he's a troubled soul. Let's be nice. He's a troubled soul. If anybody could help straighten him out, maybe he could play with a guy like Jose Abreu, because I'm sure that their paths crossed in Cuba. So that might be interesting. I think he's playing in one of the Dominican leagues right now. That's a possibility. The Sox do have some minor league players that can come up. Luis Gonzalez, Micker Adolfo, Blake Rutherford, who I actually saw last Friday. I saw Blake Rutherford play. I went with my buddies, Larry and Bob, went to Schaumburg Boomer Stadium and saw the White Sox alternate team squad play against the Cubs alternate team squad. Ronaldo Lopez looked really good on the hill. Maybe the Cubs would like Ronaldo Lopez. How about Ronaldo Lopez and another minor league pitcher or outfielder for Chris Bryant? I could see doing that. But the funny thing is, as White Sox fans, myself included, said, what are you, crazy? There's no way we trade Michael Kopech to the Cubs for Chris Bryant. Cub fans are saying, well, there's no way we're going to take just Michael Kopech for Chris Bryant. Do Cub fans realize that he's gone at the end of the year? You're going to have to move him for something. And if you could get a pitcher, something that Cubs have struggled with in their system, pitching. You have Adbert Alzolay. You don't have a lot of pitching in your system. It would be an unbelievable deal for the Cubs to get a guy like Michael Kopech for Chris Bryant. Okay? Yeah, Bryant's putting up numbers now, but the Cubs are off to a 12-16 start. They're at the bottom of the National League Central. It's surprising to me how Cub fans don't like to let their guys go away. Okay? My buddy John Rockmamola down in Florida, thanks for checking in. Yeah, the Cubs are far away, and Bryant likely to leave. So, yeah, that trade makes no sense from a White Sox perspective, but Cub fans turn it around. I don't know. You can always jump on if you hear me. You can also get me on Twitter throughout the course of the week. At Fred_Huebner. I'll look at some of those tweets throughout the course of the week, see if they apply, and use them on our Monday night show here. My suggestion, okay, now this might drive White Sox fans crazy. My suggestion for the White Sox is, if you're going to make a trade, look for a starting outfielder somewhere. Look to a team that is right there on the edge, on the verge, and trade Lance Lynn or Dallas Keuchel. Because the way Michael Kopech is pitching, you can then go Lucas Giolito, and you can go, let's see, you go Lucas Giolito, and then you can go with the young guys, okay? They can be out there. So whoever you don't trade. So if you trade Keuchel, you got Lance Lynn. You trade Lynn, you got Dallas Keuchel. So you go Giolito, one of those two that doesn't get traded, Giolito, Rodon, who should have been the pitcher of the month of May from the way April, the way he pitched, 4-0 with a .72 ERA, 25 innings, 7 hits, and 36 strikeouts, and Dylan Cease, who had an awesome outing the other day against Detroit. So there's your 5 starters. You can do that. And I think that would make more sense from a White Sox fan's perspective. I know you got Lance Lynn to try to win. You traded away Dane Dunning, my guy, who the White Sox lit up a week or so ago. But if you did that trade now, you could move one of those, bring Kopech into the starting role. You still have Garrett Crochet in the bullpen. You have Bummer in the bullpen. You need to get maybe another speed or fastball pitching reliever out there. But you have Foster, you have Hoyer, you have a bullpen that should be able to step up. In my opinion, that's a interesting deal. And if I'm Rick Hahn, I look at that. Maybe move a Dallas Keuchel, who's not been as good as advertised. Lance Lynn, I'd love to keep. But listen, you trade a veteran lefty, unless there's a no trade and they had agreements with either one of those guys. But I think that would make a lot more sense than moving a Michael Kopech. There's no way, if you're the White Sox or a White Sox fan, you want to move Michael Kopech. The Cubs, I mentioned, they lose yesterday. They lost 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati. A slugfest yesterday, 13-12 in 12 innings. Cubs are off to a rough start. 4th worst record in the National League. They're 12-16. 10 homers hit in Cincinnati on Sunday, 5 by the Cubs. I mentioned Ian Happ, the collision in the outfield. He collides with Nico Hoerner, and Hoerner has been tremendous. Hoerner had the game-winning RBI on Saturday. He's hitting .389, 14 for 36, 6 doubles, 8 walks, 7 strikeouts, 3 stolen bases, all this in just 7 games. Yeah, he should have been up when the season started. The Cubs decided not to have him up. They said David Bodie was our guy. David Bodie is the second baseman. And what are they doing now? They're playing Hoerner at second. They're playing Bodie at third, and Chris Bryant's in the outfield. David Bodie right now, as I check the stats, 181, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and 33 strikeouts. Not doing what Cub fans would love to have him do. Now, the Monday night game was postponed. The Cubs and Dodgers are going to play a doubleheader on Tuesday. So you've got the Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, for the next 3 days. Now, the Dodgers have struggled. At one point over the weekend, they were 3-9 over their last 12 games. Okay, so they've struggled a little bit, have some injuries, but they don't have injuries at the pitching staff. And the 3 pitchers the Cubs are going to see, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Trevor Bauer. So it's Buehler against Hendricks, Kershaw against Alzolay, and Bauer against Arrieta. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Cubs, whose bats came alive yesterday, thanks to the long ball, thanks to Ian Happ with 3 hits, Nico Hoerner hitting the ball. They came alive. I'm eager to see how they do against the Dodgers. Should be a fun doubleheader of baseball out at the friendly confines on Tuesday. So Cubs 12-16. They dropped 2 out of 3 over the weekend. The White Sox 15-12 after dropping 2 out of 3. They had a nice homestand, but not as nice as it could have been with a couple of struggles there. Again, Chris Bryant is playing really well. I've been saying for the last couple of years, Chris Bryant and Javi Baez. You throw Javi Baez low and away or high in the zone, you can get him out. You see Javi hit a rocket for a homer. I think he went 445 or something like that. I looked at the replay right below the waist. You wonder sometimes what pitchers are thinking. If you throw Javi or Chris Bryant to strike, they're going to hit it. You can get Javi out by not throwing him strikes. But listen, Cub fans got to be happy when there's pitchers out there that are making mistakes and throwing Javi a strike. He can hit it and he can rip it and hit it a long way. And he's been doing that the last couple of weeks. So we'll see how things go against the Dodgers this week. The White Sox have a weird schedule. They have Monday off, play Cincinnati, 2 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, then have Thursday off, then play in Kansas City, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then have the following Monday off. So from Monday the 3rd, for the next 8 days, the White Sox have 5 games in 8 days, followed up immediately by 10 games in 9 days. Wacky schedule. The pitching staff's going to be tested a little bit with 10 games in 9 days. We'll see how things work out. We'll see what they do for an alternate or an answer to the center field position. It's not just an alternate. You're not just bringing a guy up for a week or two. You lose Luis Robert for 3 to 4 months with an injury. It's a shame to see because he was hitting the ball. He was doing all the things that I was hoping to see this year. Didn't know if I would. I'm eating crow. There's no doubt. He is doing what he was supposed to do. Now, the last several years, Bears fans had hoped that their guy, Ryan Pace, their guy, Matt Nagy, would do what they're supposed to do. This week was the draft, the NFL draft. And on Thursday night, I traveled out to Lockport, my future home. I'll be moving out to Lockport sometime next year. And went to Nick and Ivy. And at Nick and Ivy, we sat and ate like slobs. And I did it with this guy. He is the brains behind 1252. It is Fat Mike. Mike, how about some of that pork belly that we stole from the Chamber of Commerce people?
I know, right? Wasn't that delicious? I had like 35 pieces of that. I'm pretty sure I ate the last like 42 pieces of it.
Yeah, it's real nice when they put it on toothpicks. We can just grab it as we walk by.
Yeah, you know, COVID restriction. You got to grab them by the toothpicks. You know,
sure.
The problem was I was walking away with 10 toothpicks at a time. That was the problem.
Yeah, so we had fun. Went out to Nick and Ivy last Thursday, watched the draft. The Bears were supposed to have the 20th pick. You're pacing a little bit, trying to figure out what they're going to do. At that point, when you're eating pork belly or we're sucking down some beers, you were probably thinking, okay, no chance for a quarterback. We're going to get offensive tackle in the first round, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I was hoping I was going. That's the way I hoped it was going. I was not looking forward to a trade up at all by any means. I really wanted them just to solidify that O-line. Like I've been calling into your show on ESPN 1000. I've been saying here all over 1252. I've been saying this for the last 2 years. It all starts up front. The way to move the ball in today's NFL, and even in NFL years and years and years ago, you have to have an offensive line to win the game. You got to have the offensive line to move the ball. You don't score points unless you have an offensive line. So I was thinking, hopefully the Bears stay there at 20, get the best offensive lineman available, whether it would have been Christian Darrisaw or whomever, and just ride it on out. But they surprised me. They really did. Moving up 9 spots, trading with the Giants, and grabbing our now quarterback Justin Fields. I wasn't happy about it then. But after day 2 of the draft, I've calmed down, and I really like what the Bears have done with this draft for sure.
Yeah, there was an expletive, I think, as soon as they announced that the Bears have selected Justin Fields. Now, one of your reasonings, and it's not the only one. I've heard you're not the only one saying this. I've heard a lot of Bears fans say the same thing. Is that Ohio State doesn't really is not a haven for quarterbacks. You don't get a lot of them out there, and then when they do play well, they come to the pros and don't play well at the next level. Now, a lot of people have said that Justin Fields is the difference there. Plus, many people have said that they compared him and Trevor Lawrence, and some even had him ahead of Trevor Lawrence when they're looking at quarterbacks.
No, definitely for sure. Trevor Lawrence is a stud. I mean, let's not kid anybody. We all know what Trevor Lawrence is going to be in today's NFL. He is the prototypical type of quarterback that sits back in the pocket, finds the open receiver by checking all of his reads and tossing the ball to whoever's open. That's Trevor Lawrence. That's this draft's Peyton Manning. That's this draft's Eli Manning. That's this draft's, Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, so on and so forth. He is the prototypical stage quarterback. That's what he is. But today's NFL is a little different. You got to have a mobile quarterback. A lot of teams like to run the RPO. A lot of teams like to, a lot of check downs and just getting the ball out real quick, real fast. Justin Fields excels at that. He's great in play action. And in a pinch, he's not the guy that's going to sit back and just wait for a sack. He can scramble. We in his 40 time this year he ran out like a 4.38, I believe, a 4.38 40. So when he wants to run, he's the fastest quarterback in the NFL, and that's exactly what the Bears just got. He's putting up quicker lightning legs than Lamar Jackson, who's running for 1,000 yards a year. That's the type of quarterback we got, and it's special. It's really special.
One of the things that I had a problem with when it looked at Nagy and Pace is they would have never admitted it to anybody, but I think they told Mitch Trubisky not to run when Mitch came back from injuries. And you're not going to be able to do that with Justin Fields. You're going to change what you want Justin Fields to do. A lot of people called the radio station over the weekend after the deal was made and said that you're going to have different offensive systems with Dalton than with Justin Fields. Not necessarily. I've been told by people much smarter than me, not different systems, but you'll have different packages for a guy like Justin Fields. You'll have called runs that you won't have for an Andy Dalton. And I think that this is Matt Nagy's time to shine because he was in Kansas City. He saw what they did with Patrick Mahomes. Let him sit and learn for a year behind Alex Smith, who had a tremendous year that year for Kansas City. The next year, Nagy comes to Chicago. Patrick Mahomes becomes, the best quarterback in the NFL right now. But don't you think this is our chance to see exactly what Nagy can do as an offensive guy?
Definitely, for sure. And with this draft going, obviously today the Chicago Bears released Leno. So now Tevin Jenkins is going to fill that role. It's pretty much made set in stone after that releasing there. You also saved $9 million while doing so. And that pretty much solidifies Tevin Jenkins having a starting role on this line. And it's fantastic because you got to see what Justin Fields can do. But yes, this year is a make or break year for Matt Nagy, I would believe. I mean, that's all fine and dandy. You went out and finally did something in the draft the right way, the correct way, what I've been begging and pleading for the last 5 years. It finally came to fruition on my end. But now it's put up or shut up time. I'm not expecting them to, with the added game this year, 17 games, I'm still maybe possibly only expecting 6 wins. That's my ceiling. Yeah, that's my ceiling.
Holy cow.
That's my ceiling. I mean, their schedule is a very tough schedule. They play almost every single playoff team from last year, and it's going to be a tough schedule for those guys. I'm an optimistic Bear fan, but I'm also it's not the glass is half full, it's not the glass is half empty, it's the glass is where it is with me. And this team has a lot of growing up to do. They got to cut cap, they got to fill voids, and 6 wins is my max for this team.
The reason you were surprised the Bears traded up, was it because of all the failures that Ryan Pace had in the past trading up, or did you just think they were going to sit there and wait? Because I think most Bears fans have gotten upset with Pace for 2 reasons. One, his picks have been awful, and right. 2, he's moved up to take bad picks and given away a lot of other things. Now this time he gave away a first rounder, but you know what? It didn't seem to be as bad as other years when he's given things up. It seemed like sitting there being a little patient, it helped him out a lot.
In previous drafts, Ryan Pace has given up a lot of draft capital. I mean, obviously for the trade for Mitchell Trubisky, we gave away another first round pick, that year first round pick, so on and so forth. This year, this trade made a lot more sense. You gave up this year's 20, next year's first round, okay, whatever. But if Justin Fields pans out to do to be what we all think he's capable of being, it's a fantastic trade. Look at what San Fran gave up to move up to 3 to grab Trey Lance. They gave away a haul. So it's almost, that trade is very incomparable to what the Bears did to move up to grab Trubisky. San Fran gave up a haul this year to grab Trey Lance. The Bears gave up, a first this year to trade up to 13, or to trade up to 11. I apologize. Trade up to 11. Next year's first round and a 4.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I know.
I'm okay with that. I'm definitely okay with that. Especially for a quarterback who everyone believes is the second or maybe the best quarterback in this year's draft class.
Okay, now the easy question is to ask, can Fields start? Should Fields start? Now, I think I probably even asked that yesterday on the radio on ESPN 1000 with Mark Zander. But the question really should be, is Justin Fields going to be given the opportunity to gain a starting spot? Because do you think going in, they're going to say, listen, Andy Dalton's a guy, you're going to have to sit and learn? Or do you think they're going to say, here, let's go on out and see who does best?
I think Justin Fields has every opportunity to be starting quarterback week 1 this year, hands down, without question, especially because of all the rumors that we're hearing today that they contacted Andy Dalton on the day of the draft. Right. Before they drafted Justin Fields. They talked to him after the draft. Hey, are you still okay with us having Fields? I think Fields has every opportunity to be starter week 1. Now, that being said, do I think he should be starter week 1? No. I think you come out of the gates with Andy Dalton. Just let the game come to Justin Fields. There's a big difference in speed, strength, and everything when it comes to this level of football. You want to make this guy acclimated to that real quick. That's what that preseason is for. If he comes out of the gate and blows Andy Dalton out of the water, by all means, start this kid week 1 with a brand new offensive line, looking good, looking, big, beefy, and protecting him. I'm all game. But you do not want to risk this kid's health behind a makeshift O-line. You just got to be patient, got to be careful with him.
Some people say they had Tevin Jenkins with a first round review, and he goes in the second round. The Bears moved up from 52 overall to 39. They move up for the second time in 2 days on Friday and get the offensive tackle that they liked. again, somebody had they had first round grades on him. Were your thoughts? Was he one of the guys that you would have been happy with if they got him at 20?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. He was
Okay.
definitely one of those guys. Rashawn Slater was another one of those guys. Elijah Vera Tucker was another one of those guys. But I mean, Tevin Jenkins going into day 2, he was the number 1 tackle on my list outside of Jalen Mayfield, Liam Eichenberg, Samuel Cosme, and there's another one floating around out there that I'm forgetting his name. But Tevin Jenkins was number 1 on my list. And when they moved up to grab him, that made me feel so much better about the Bears moving up on day 1 to grab Justin Fields. When they went out and grabbed Tevin Jenkins, it put all my skepticism, all my nervousness at ease because we finally got a big, mean offensive lineman. That's exactly what the Bears have needed for years.
Yeah, I've asked the question over the last 2 days on the radio. I asked the question, when was the last time the Bears had a offensive lineman that brought nastiness? And it's a shame they may have to go back to Roberto Garza and Olin Kreutz, but it might be that long because since then you've had a bunch of other guys who didn't bring that nastiness to the line. And I've said over and over, I like what Mustafa and Bars did, not only what they did on the field, and I know they did it against lesser teams at the end of the year, but they also were running downfield and picking up their receiver after he got tackled and picking up their running back and being there if some guy was laying on him a little too hard. And it looks like with those two and also with Tevin Jenkins, they're going to be an offensive line to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, you could even go to say as far as, like, the last time the Bears had a nasty offensive lineman. Yeah, of course. Olin Kreutz, Roberto Garza, those guys are definitely in there. James Big Cat Williams is definitely in that mix.
Yeah.
A guy that was supposed to be in that mix was Kyle Long. Unfortunately, Kyle Long couldn't stay healthy. That was Kyle Long's problem. Now he's back in the NFL today. He's out ring chasing with KC, so let's see how that works. But Tevin Jenkins, this kid, he's a meanie. That's what my mom called him, a meanie today. He's a big meanie, she said. I'm like, you're right, Ma. He's a big meanie, but that's exactly what the Bears need is a big meanie.
Well, and the other guy they took from Missouri in the later round, Larry Borum. He's from Missouri, and he's the same way. He says he's nasty. Mizzou, that's right. He's nasty. He's a guy that plays that way, and I think they need some of that stuff. And then hopefully he'll be there. I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do with James Daniels. Okay, James Daniels was good at Iowa. Iowa had a lot of good offensive linemen coming out. He was good. We got here, had some problems, then he got hurt. Cody Whitehair moved from the center back over to the guard position. I'm eager to see what they're going to do with Daniels because with Daniels, Whitehair, Mustafa, Bars, you still have Jermaine Ifedi, who will probably be at the right tackle to start the season, and then move Jenkins at the left side. It's nice to see if they all come through, but I'm eager to see because Daniels is still a young guy. We'll see what they can figure out with him.
I would imagine Daniels starts off the year at right guard. You know, I would imagine that I would imagine that it goes left tackle through right tackle. I would imagine it goes Jenkins, Whitehair, Mustafa at center, and then Daniels, and then Ifedi at right tackle. That's what I envision. That's kind of how it was playing out last year a little bit with Ifedi at the right tackle position. He did a better job there last year towards the last end, like you said. Now I know. Listen, I called your show plenty of times.
Yeah,
saying, listen, they only play who they can play. I know that's your argument, and I understand that. But with just having Mustafa at center, moving Cody Whitehair back to his natural position at guard, having an actual left tackle and a swing tackle, and having, like you said, Larry Borum, who's a swing tackle. He can play right or left from Mizzou. I mean, hey, we're looking good. So if Ifedi starts, messing his pants there and, dropping trowel, then we got another big tackle, swing tackle in the midst.
One last thing, and people are starting finally to listen to me, maybe. I don't know. I've never been a big grades guy because, we have no idea what all these guys are going to look like. You draft based on what they do in college. Who knows what's going to happen? And I talked to Jeff Dickerson yesterday from ESPN and asked him, and he said finally they stopped making them ask for grades because all the NFL Nation guys would have to come up with grades and they'll have to come up with preseason records and all the other kind of stuff. What's your opinion on draft grades? Because it seems like, some of the experts out there, they come up with their own ideas. I think sometimes if I see a consensus of several, then maybe I believe a little bit in them. But I look at them basically with a grain of salt, and I'm happy that slowly but surely people are starting to phase them out a little bit.
Right. Yeah, no. Draft grades are pretty much a no duh when I look at them. Obviously, you draft Trevor Lawrence, you're getting an A. Duh. You draft Peyton Manning at number 1, you're getting an A. Duh. That's kind of how I look at draft grades. I stopped paying attention to draft grades when Russell Wilson was drafted. because they also got Cam Chancellor and they also got Brandon Bowden, and they got another. I think they had another big wide receiver in that draft as well, and it was a complete joke. Like, and they gave Seattle an F.
Okay.
They're like, Russell Wilson may not even start ever again. May not
There
even start a single game. Like, okay, and now looking back, what's it, 10 years now?
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's on a fast track to the Hall of Fame up there in Seattle with a Super Bowl. It's draft grades are a joke. I mean, they truly are. But I mean, like I said, it's a duh moment. You know what I mean? Everybody, who knows? I wonder how many people gave Ryan Leaf an A, and the San Diego Chargers are I know. A draft grade of an A when they drafted Ryan Leaf, So
yeah, I know, pretty amazing. I read a book about the draft and all about the whole situation, about how Peyton Manning came to all of his meetings, and he was prepared. He said, "Here's what we're going to do. Here's what I want to do." Ryan Leaf he missed a meeting. He wasn't around. It's like, okay, sometimes somewhere along the line, guys get what they deserve, and Ryan Leaf apparently got what he deserved. Hey, thanks for jumping on. I know you're on the other side, so all you had to do was flip a switch. So I knew you were going to be around. But I love talking Bears. I love talking football with you. And people can usually see. I know you're taking a hiatus. You're off for a few weeks, right?
Yeah, I got to do a lot of wedding planning on my end. So it's the nice kind of kick back and relax. I still got a lot of work to do here at 1252, but I mean, I'll be taking a couple week hiatus from the FatMike Chicago Sports Show and just kind of kicking back and planning wedding stuff, or else Megan's going to kill me. So
yeah, well, I don't know if I've told you this, but I've told all my friends, and I told my wife this before, and I tell my girlfriend Linda, I'm just shocked that women even give us a look. So I mean, we better be happy with what we get, because man, oh man, anytime we get a chance for a woman to take a look at us, we got to be amazed. It's just absolutely amazing. So I know you and I are both very, very lucky people. So good luck with those, and we'll definitely be talking with you soon. And there's so much stuff on 1252. It's great. You guys making the big news a couple of weeks ago with the crazy Jim McMahon and everything else like that.
Yep.
But people forget you had Yurko on the same show. That's going to be the trivia question down the road.
Yeah,
Yurko's,
exactly.
That's right. Yurko is one of the keys. So, Mike, thanks.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Fat Mike, he's the brains behind 1252 Sports Chicago, a guy that sets all this stuff up. He came and asked me if I would be interested in doing a podcast. I've been wanting to do one for years. And finally, Mike got me to do one. I said, as long as I can talk about beer as well. I said, because I know sports and I kind of know beer. I'm not the guy that goes, I smell this hops and the Citra and the no, I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that good, I like it, goes down well, I'll have another. That's the kind of beer drinker I am. A lot of people will ask me, do you like this? Do you like that? I'll tell you what I like. Usually it's a lot. I can usually tell you what I don't like, but it's funny. And in this day and age, people on Yelp and all the other stuff, if they have a bad meal at one place, they go and they just skewer the restaurant. It might have been a bad day. It might have been something awful. If you have a bad meal or a bad beer over and over again, that's fine. On Untapped, one of the beer apps that you can rate your beers and stuff as you drink them, I never give a beer a bad rating. If I taste a beer and I don't like it, I may not even rate it or review it. But if it's something I like, I'll review it and say why. Because everybody that's out there making beer is trying to make something they like, something that's good. And some things may not work. And if it doesn't work, it's not going to be there for a while. That's the nice thing about all the craft breweries that are out there. If they make something that's not working quite as well, then that's the way it would be. Christian said, hey, Carmen's got his Whiskey Wednesdays. I should have Tipsy Tuesdays. Or, way too much Mondays, one of the two. We're going to talk more beer in a moment. Mike also mentioned that the Bears made the announcement today that they were releasing Charles Leno Jr. Two things. I have a problem calling anybody juniors, and this went all the way back to Ken Griffey, except that when Ken Griffey was playing, his dad was playing. So you pretty much had to say Ken Griffey Jr. When Cal Ripken was playing, his dad was a third base coach. So if you said Cal Ripken was at the plate, you didn't confuse him with the other guy. So in the NFL, there's all these juniors and the thirds and senior and Steve Smith Sr. and all that stuff. I have a problem calling I'm the third. I don't usually go around saying, Fred J. Hubner the third, how are you? I don't need it on the back of my jersey, but I should get a jersey that says Huebner the third on it, just because of that. But Charles Leno Jr. gone from the Chicago Bears, and I'm seeing a number that says he started 93 games. 93 games. That just goes to show you how bad the Bears' offensive line has been. Because if you've been a Bears fan and you've watched Charles Leno start 93 games at the left tackle position, man, oh man, has been absolutely brutal watching that. And Bobby Massey finally left. When Bobby Massey came here from Arizona, he was not very good, and he never got much better. Charles Leno was there. I think it was Troy Aikman that called him, oh, I'm going to mess it up. He called him like, the holding machine or the personal foul machine or something like, or false start machine, something like that. Yeah, Charles Leno, for a 7th round pick, he made money. Congratulations. But I'm glad the Bears are moving on from Charles Leno Jr. There will be a new left tackle for the Chicago Bears, and it appears it's going to be Tevin Jenkins, even though he played, I think it was 85 of his games at the right tackle position. Jenkins, when he was on his Zoom call with the Bears the other day, said, I can play right or left, and I can play either guard position, and I've been snapping in practice. So he's all set. He can do absolutely anything necessary for the Chicago Bears to help them out. And that's what we're all looking forward to doing. Okay. My beers, every week, I always have a beer segment. And sometimes I'm just talking about beers. The last couple of weeks, I've had different people on. I had Paul and Emily Slayton on last week from Skeleton Key Brewing. I had Eric Schmidt from Orange and Brewer on. And I am going to tip a GoldFinger Maibach as we bring in our next guest, because I read in the paper that these people were starting a brewery for just lagers. And I said, well, how the hell is that going to work? So we bring in Tom Beckmann and his wife, Alice. And how you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Doing great. How are you?
We're doing real well. I had just one Maibach left, so I had to make sure I saved it for the show tonight. But I remember seeing in the an article in the paper or a little blurb somewhere that there's going to be a new brewery opening up. This was about a year or so ago. And it said, and they're just going to make lagers. I said to myself, that's unique. That's rare. That's not something you see with all the people cranking out their IPAs and their milkshake IPAs and everything else. But for you guys, for you, Tom, it's a family thing. It's not just that you didn't just decide you're going to make lagers, did you?
No. Our family, our ancestry, actually the last name GoldFinger is what led us to naming our brewery GoldFinger Brewery, because back in the 19th century, my family had a pretty sizable brewery, if you consider what brewing was back then. So we wanted to pay homage to the styles that they were producing. It was right at the kind of the peak of when lager yeast had overtaken Europe. It's a fairly new style of beer at the time. So we wanted to pay homage to them. Plus, my formal brewing education was in Germany. So I kind of drank the Kool-Aid while I was in Munich and also fell in love with the European style. So it just made sense that that's what we were going to focus on.
How difficult was it for you to do that? Or, I mean, because it was in your, I mean, growing up, how much into it were you as opposed to just drinking it? How much into it were you?
Well, I actually had started home brewing with my brother.
Okay.
This was when we were living in the city. We were living in a high rise actually, and we were just making beer on the stovetop. And it was right around that time that we had discovered some cousins back in Warsaw, and they had been digging up a lot of the history of our family. And my brother and I were just absolutely addicted to making beer. We were wondering why we loved doing it, and it turns out it's actually in our blood. So years later, I was working corporate. Joseph, my brother, was working as well. But years later, I just determined, I decided to dedicate my career to brewing. So it took several years for us to get to this point, but there was always the goal in mind to revive the old family business. So we dug up some amazing artifacts from that era. A lot of it is the inspiration for a lot of our design and our logos, and of course in the beer styles that we produce.
So Allison, when you meet Tom and he tells you he's this much into beer, I mean, did it take a while for you to buy in?
Well, I would say I was a beer drinker before, but more of a Bud Light kind of girl.
Sure.
But now, when we started dating, I definitely became more into beer. And once he said he was going to quit the job that we actually met at, I wasn't truly bought in that it was actually going to happen. And now we're married and have a brewery, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and COVID didn't make it easy. I mean, you guys basically you opened like a week or two right right after COVID started, right?
We opened July 31st of 2020.
Okay.
So I think places were sort of opening up
right
around then, after everything had been completely shut down. But yeah, we broke ground on the building in 2019, September of 2019.
Okay.
We were hoping to be open by April of 2020, but obviously COVID happened. March, everything shut down, and that delayed us. So we didn't get to open our doors until the end of July.
Well, and you mentioned that as one of the questions I had down here. When you guys picked the place you're going to have it, thank goodness for you that you had outdoor space, because that's where I've had, I mean, for the first how many months with the tents you had and the heaters you had, I'd go there on a Friday night. It might be 35 degrees out, but the heaters were cranking. I'd sit and have a couple of beers. That outside space had to be a savior for you guys.
Yeah, you were one of the brave ones that froze through your beer.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, that was so key for you guys, because otherwise I don't know how you could have kept going.
Definitely.
We wouldn't have made it. And I'll never forget, I think it was 2 weeks into our opening, my landlord came over and sat down in the beer garden. And she pulled me aside and she said, I know that we spent months debating about the parking lot and how much of it you guys could have in your lease. And we fought to get the whole parking lot. Sure. And she said, I never understood why you guys were pushing so hard. I mean, there's plenty of parking here. And sure enough, thank God you did, because look at this. It's true.
Yeah. I know you guys had a love for lagers. And how concerned were you with that, the way everything else was going and all the other breweries that were opening, that it was going to be a tough thing for people that are so much into the craft beers to come back to the lagers? I mean, because let's be honest, Allison, some of the beers, you know, they're reminiscent of Budweiser or Miller or stuff like that. They're lagers and they take a while to make. So how concerned were you guys?
Well, a little concerned. I had a lot of people ask when we were going to brew an IPA.
Sure.
The funny thing was I used to work for Lagunitas, so I was brewing IPA on a daily basis. But I wish I could take credit for making lagers more popular in the area and more popular amongst craft beer drinkers. But it's actually thanks to many of the breweries before us that slowly started to chisel away at this notion that lagers also can be flavorful. They can also be craft. We just essentially decided, let's do this for our family. Let's do this for our friends, all of us. We love drinking this beer, and let's just work on brewing the best possible beer and essentially just cross our fingers that other people enjoy it too. And thankfully people have been enjoying it.
Yeah, they certainly do. There's no doubt about it. I remember one day, it was the second or third time I was there sitting outside, and I looked at you and I said, you're not going to have any problems. You said, what are you talking about? There was a table of, I'll be 64 next week. There were a table of guys that were probably close to 70. There were 6 of them, and they were on their second or third beer, and they probably walked over from the neighborhood. And I said, if you can get them to come on out and drink the lagers, they'll come out. You'll get us, because we're going to want to see what it's all about. And I think that's what's happened. So when you go there on a daily basis, you'll see people in their 20s. You'll see people in their 60s and 70s, even beyond me, sitting there drinking. And that's one of the coolest things, is that you've brought everybody together over their love of beer.
I remember you telling me that, and
Yeah.
you were absolutely right. One thing that Allison and I always talk about is, so when I was in what?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So when I was in Munich, studying brewing, Allison came to visit me, and this was during the winter. So the beer gardens were closed by then, but in Munich there are Christmas markets all over the city, pretty much every square. Beautiful, and it was one of our favorite things to go to. And you'll be sitting there drinking a beer or a Glühwein, and next to you will be like 4 generations of a family, and
Sure.
everybody's having a good time. So that's something that we wanted to make sure to establish in our brewery, and so far it's been working.
Your staff is when you guys first started, you're in the back brewing, and Allison's doing whatever she's doing, and then you look, and Janet comes and helps her, and Evan comes and helps, and they're like, it's so great because they're so kind to everybody, and they make everybody feel at home and help out, because when a lot of people come in, they look at the list of beers, and you'll see an original, the Pils, and a Vienna. Sometimes you'll have 3, and it's like, well, don't you have anything else? It's like, well, no, but we're making this. But they were so great at saying, you should try this, and knowing what to tell people and how to help them out. I think your staff really did a great job of helping everybody out, because I've never seen anybody upset. I know we're drinking beer, but I've never seen anybody upset in that room. And I think a lot of it had to do with how well your staff helps people.
Yeah, that was definitely a big part of hiring people. All of our employees have been there from day one. We recently hired 2 new people, so I think they've really become part of our family, and they share the passion and love behind the brand. So they're definitely willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah,
it's great too, because when I follow them on social media, when they leave your place, a lot of times they're out at another brewery posting a picture of drinking something from somewhere else. So that's great.
But always sporting the GoldFinger brand.
Yes. Well, and I got to ask you, because you're wearing the shirt, and 2 things. We'll talk about the turn first, and the spigot butt that you have on, because when people walk in, I know you did a whole piece on it on your Facebook a while back, but it's a little bit different the way the pour comes through than a normal beer. Explain your shirt and explain what that does for the beer.
Sure. Yeah. So my shirt features 4 side pull taps, and if you look closely, it's actually an image of our own tap. So it's the perspective of looking straight on them, but in place of the stars for the Chicago flag.
Right.
And we're kind of side pull faucet nerds at GoldFinger. So these faucets are all from Prague, from Czechia, and we had always wanted to serve our beer out of this, because with lagers, most of it is like nuanced flavor. It's not about big, bold flavors. And one thing that helps kind of bring out that flavor is the side pull faucets. And so every single one of ours is a side pull, which basically creates a nice, dense, wet foam on each beer, and it sort of opens up the beer a little more. So we got so into them that we wanted to put them on a T-shirt, and maybe some other apparel coming soon.
Sure. Well, and Allison, how much did you have to let the staff and everybody know? Because I remember the first time I ordered a Pils, and I've seen other people, and people will order, and out comes the Vienna, and out comes the original lager, and the other person's waiting and waiting. How long did it take for you guys to do a good job of explaining it to them? But explaining it takes a little bit longer to pour the Pils.
I think from day one, that was part of their training, that it was, if they're new and they don't understand it, we have the description on the menu, but not everyone fully reads that. So just letting them know, like, hey, it's going to be an extra couple of minutes. Here's why. And then, when the beer gets delivered, like, your Pils should be out in a couple more minutes. So I think from day one, the staff has tried, to explain the reasoning behind that, or if asked, know how to explain that.
Talk about an amazing staff. First of all, we don't give them a lot of options to sell. They get 3 options. Right. By the way, tell the customers it's going to take them 6 minutes to get their beer.
Sure.
But they bought in right away, and they've been amazing.
It does make a fun game. So people, if they're drinking 5 Pils, they'll start to time it, the perfect timing of knowing when to put that next Pils in. That way, at their last sip, the new one is placed on the table and everyone's happy.
Well, it's funny too. People ask me a lot of times when I first got into craft beer, and I was into. I mean, I grew up in the '70s. My buddy worked at Miller Lite, so anytime we had a party, there was a keg of Miller Lite. I got Miller Lite signs in my basement. We were drinking Miller Lite all the time. But then I advanced to Guinness, and when you go to a bar and you order a Guinness and it's there right away, you say, "Well, hold it. That's not correct. You're not supposed to do that." And I became Bassett certified. I bartended for a while, and people would say, "Where's my Guinness?" I said, they go, "You only got half of it there." I go, "I got 3/4 of it. It'll be there soon." But you have to explain it to people. And it's great because when I first saw that, that's what I related it to. I said, with the Guinness, you pour 3/4, you let it settle, you do it again. And at Guinness, they get crazy because it's like on a stopwatch. And it's like exact. You've got to have exact this much time. And I've been to so many places, Italian bars, Irish bars, I'd order a Guinness, they bring it right up. I go, "Oh, damn, this isn't what I ordered." And they say, "What's a Guinness?"
I would love to have a Guinness poured by you, Fred.
Well, it was actually, I was okay. I couldn't do the Shamrock. I wasn't good at doing the Shamrock. I tried a couple times. It didn't really look. It looked more like a weed than a Shamrock, but it didn't work real well. Explain real quickly if you can, because I know when you were first open, I would go there and I'd hear people looking at the menu and they'd say, "Well, they just opened. Why is it they only have 3 beers? Why don't they have more?" Explain to people how long it takes to brew a lager as opposed to an IPA.
Sure. I would say our beers average about 8 to 10 weeks in fermenting and conditioning before we actually serve it. Some of our beers even longer. For example, our Oktoberfest is 5 months. Most of our bocks are close to 3 months for maturation time before we pour it. So there's 2 reasons why we have sort of a limited selection. Number one is we wanted to make sure not to stretch ourselves too thinly. We wanted to be able to produce beers consistently so that if you visit us 6 months later, the beer will taste just as good as it did when you had it 6 months ago. But the other thing is, because of the long maturation time, we'd have to have like 40 tanks just to have a bunch of beers on tap. Because what the original lager, for example, which is what I'm drinking, the one that is on tap was brewed 2 months ago, which means that there are tanks full of the one that's coming up after that. So it kind of ties up the tanks for a while.
When I first got into this, I was talking to people at Goose Island, and they took me through their whole warehouse and everything else, and where they were, all their barrel room. And they were telling me that the most important thing about brewing is making sure the tank is clean before you put something else in it. They said one little speck of bacteria can ruin everything, and then you're all set back. But it's amazing because even though they're all making other things, and I know Josh Noel, he wrote the book about Goose Island and everything else, and how they actually went away from and sold, and a lot of people thought sold out. But my biggest thing with them is that the respect that they have for people that brew at Budweiser, at Miller, because every single day they have to make something that tastes exactly the same as it did 20 years ago. It's always got to be exactly the same. That's not easy in the world of brewing.
It definitely isn't, and especially when it comes to lagers, because they're not super hopped, or they're not covered by other major flavors. They're typically not really fruited or anything like that. So even to the not as trained palate, you can detect things that are off from batch to batch. So it's really hard. And I always find it funny because when I talk to my other friends in the industry, other brewers, you would think that craft brewers would be the first ones to criticize Bud or Miller, because we're all about craft and small and local. But you're absolutely right. Most of them will come to the defense of those breweries, because to be able to produce those beers that consistently on such a huge scale is really impressive.
Now, granted, the equipment they got is like the warehouses they have and the stuff they have and the money they have is ridiculous, but I understand that. Just a couple more things. I really appreciate you guys coming on. I saw you posted something the other day. You were out and you had an Allagash White, and you were a big fan. Okay. Yes. Now, I know I tell people every once in a while, people that I know that like Blue Moon, and I'll not necessarily shove them, but I'll tell them if you can't have the Blue Moon, try the Allagash White. Is there another couple beers? I don't want to say. I mean, technically, I guess it's a craft beer, right? I mean, yeah, made from a brewery. But
Yeah.
Are there a couple other beers like that are like people ask me what's my go-to, and a lot of times my go-to will be Revolution Anti-Hero, or I was at a wedding one time. They had two beers. They had Revolution Anti-Hero and Three Floyd Zombie Dust. I go, okay. My wife had to drive home. I said that was a perfect day. So if you go someplace and it's not a big craft place, doesn't have a lot of those kind of craft beers, what is it that you're going to order if you go to someplace else?
Do you know?
I don't.
I
haven't
haven't
been able to drink in 6 months.
Yeah, Allison hasn't been drinking because we're.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Congrats.
I'm a little rusty on that one.
I would say my go-to is actually Pacifico.
Okay.
I really like Pacifico, and then Miller High Life is also a favorite of ours. In fact, for Christmas, we gave everybody one of the champagne, all of our staff, one of the champagne bottles of High Life.
Yeah.
So those are like, if I'm not doing craft, those are my go-tos.
They're not easy to find. I remember, I mean, like I said, I tell you, I graduated high school in '75, and walking around with a clear quart of Miller High Life was like one of the things we did, because the state, ridiculously so, but the state allowed us to drink at 18, so that was fine with us. You've got your original lager, your Pils, your Vienna. I know I had the Bohemian Pilsner, the Maibach. You also made a beer just for the Mexican restaurant down the street in downtown Downers. How's that going?
It's going great. We released it, was it last Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays ago?
Maybe 2.
I think 2 Wednesdays ago. And ever since then, our original lager has always been the #1 seller, but consistently since then, it's actually been our #1 seller.
That's great.
So it's going well. We have another batch almost ready to be kegged off, but we're starting to realize we might have to be brewing a little bit more than we originally anticipated.
Well, I know that a while back when I saw you, I can't remember what I was there to drink. It might have been the Bohemian Pilsner, but you told me how excited you were about the Maibach. What are you excited about now that's coming up?
So we have a couple collabs coming up. One of them is being released at our friend's brewery. You mentioned Paul and Emily at Skeleton Key. We did a Hefeweizen over at their brewery, so we're really excited about that. Especially, unfortunately, that's one of Allison's favorite styles, but she can't enjoy it right now.
Sure.
But that was an awesome time. So they'll be releasing that this Thursday, and then we'll release it at our tap room probably a week later. We have a couple other collabs that we'll be announcing soon that we're also really excited about. But as far as beers that we're brewing, we're reviving our New Zealand lager that we released last year. It was one of our early seasonals. So it'll be nice and hoppy. And it's funny because that's one of the most requested beers that we get. And I think the ratings on it weren't like even close to the other ones. So I'm sort of surprised that people really want that beer, but people keep asking when it's coming back. So it's coming back.
Okay. What led you to keeping the cans right now, as of now, pretty much the same with just a different couple of colors here and there? Like the Maibach's got a green and some of the other ones have different, because you know, some of the cans out there, so you look at them, you have well, first of all, I like this because it says GoldFinger. It's the GoldFinger Maibach. It's real easy to figure out. And you don't have to worry too much about, I had asked Paul and Emily how they come up with some of the names for their beers. This is perfect. It's a GoldFinger Maibach, so it's real easy to find. So what made you come up with just this and do it? Because it's great, because you can recognize it right away. You don't have to say, hey, that's interesting. Oh, that's GoldFinger. You know it right away.
I think it just kind of fits everything that we do, sort of a classic brewery. That's a classic way of branding. A lot of the German brands are very similar to that you can't really differentiate them. Also forced by some laws in Germany, but we just wanted to keep a really clean, simple look. And we wanted to make sure that there was a color difference so that you could at least tell that it wasn't the original. It was the Pills. But beyond that, we just kind of reserved some of our really special beers for some crazy artwork, which we did for our Doppelbock last year.
Yes, you did.
That one had a fire-breathing dragon, a legend from Krakow on it. But beyond that, we're sticking to the nice, clean, classic look.
Cool. That's great. And since you mentioned the Hefeweizen, one of my favorites, after the Guinness, I went to the Hackershore Weiss. That was my favorite. Spinning the bottle and everything else. And my wife would always say, "Are you going to put the lemon in?" I said, "You know what? You can put the lemon in. I'll do without it." But it was still one of my favorites. And there's a lot of places. There's a place in Hinsdale, York Tavern, always has it. So I know anytime I go there, I can always get one. But that was one of my favorites too. So, I'm German. I found out I was 3/4 German instead of just a half. So I think that I understand all of my Hackershore love. But no, I can't wait for the Hefeweizen. That'll be nice. I'm pretty sure I know where I'm going to be on Thursday now, so that I hear that they're releasing it. So that should be fun. Guys, have a great time. I really appreciate you jumping on, and you'll see me. You'll just turn around. You'll be brewing, and I'll be sitting at the bar having a beer. So it's a great place.
Yeah. We've come to rely on you being the first person to drink all of our new releases. So
yeah. That's why I think I got to get to on Thursday. I've got to get out there for the collab. So I go out and see Paul and Emily and see what time I have to get there in order to get one. So that'll be nice. Thanks for jumping on in. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for having us. It's been fun.
Okay, thanks, Tom and Allison, and they've done such a great job at GoldFinger Brewing. I had talked to a friend of mine, my financial guy. Boy, am I old, right? I got a financial guy. Paul, he's a great guy. Paul. Pete, I'm sorry. Not Paul. That's what happens when you drink a few beers when you're doing the show. Pete, my buddy, and he lives down the street. And he said, "I'll meet you there." He goes, "I'm not big on craft beers." I go, "You'll love this. They're lagers." And he comes in, he goes, "This is awesome." I talked to him a couple of weeks later. He goes, "I brought some friends with. They don't drink any of the craft beers. They're Bud Light guys or Miller guys, but they love the lagers." And that's what GoldFinger does. And so the nice part with GoldFinger, as I said, is you can get that, and then you can get some of the other stuff. Go down the street, go to Orange and Brew, go to Alta Brewing, go to Miskatonic or Skeleton Key, and you can get, some of the IPAs and the milkshake IPAs, the Storm Shakes and Miskatonic. You can get all that stuff. So being in Downers Grove right now, and then in Nick and Ivy, we were there the other day. I had a vanilla porter. I had all kinds of great stuff there. So there's so much good beer out there. That's why I told Fat Mike we had to do sports and beer. And Fat Mike also said, you got to do the What's Up Fred's Can, because there's always something that's pissing you off.
Well, maybe it's just because you're ugly.
Ugly? You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, come on!
Time for What's Up Fred's Can on 1252 Sports Chicago.
This sounds so simple. If you're a baseball fan and you're a White Sox fan or Cubs fan, just a baseball fan in general, and you've ever played the game, yesterday there was a pop-up. The White Sox, Lucas Giolito had given up one run. I think the White Sox are 1-5 in 6 Lucas Giolito starts, something like that. They've been struggling, and Giolito not having the season that he had hoped for right now. But there was a pop-up, and Yohan Moncada and Tim Anderson are over it. Now, Anderson's got a better angle, and Moncada's backing up for it. How hard is it for big league players to call the ball and one guy to run away? Anderson's got his glove there, is all ready to catch the ball, and what happens? Moncada jumps back, goes off his glove, runs, scores. It's 2-0 in favor of Cleveland. The White Sox end up losing 5-0. Is it that the players don't stay in the minors long enough? Probably not, because when you're in Little League, you learn how to call the ball. How do they not do it in the big leagues on a nightly basis? When I'm done with this, I'll go and watch baseball around the league, and I'll see guys make stupid Little League mistakes. That's what baseball has become, unfortunately. The players are swinging for the fences or hitting their home runs or getting their big money. They don't know fundamentals. Hopefully the White Sox can figure it out. The umpires, twice this week, umpires have called guys out for running out of the baseline when the players did not run out of the baseline. They absolutely did not run out of the baseline. McCutcheon, the other day, they called him out saying he ran out of the baseline. He slid towards the guy making a double play. He did not come close. He stayed in the baseline. He slid to the base. Didn't make any sense. They did the same thing on a play, a ball going to first base. The pitcher came over to get the ball, and he said he interfered with the runner. The runner interfered with the pitcher because he ran out of the baseline. He didn't. Are all umpires going senile? Do they need to get 20 and 25 and 30-year-old umpires and get rid of all these old men? I don't know what's going on, but they're worse and worse by the day. The home plate, the balls and strikes, every time they put the K zone up, I shake my head because it's so brutal how bad umpires are. I cannot wait for the day that they have the automated strike zone. And then the guy behind the plate will just hear in his ear, ball, strike 2. Strike 3. He'll make the call at the plate when a guy slides in. No doubt he'll call it wrong, but maybe he'll get fewer calls wrong than he's getting right now. That's absolutely crazy. And one other thing, the Bulls are about to start. It's Monday night. The Bulls are about to start. I watch as many Bulls games as I can. What's up, Fred's Can is the NBA. Who really cares? Does anybody care about the NBA? These players play 2 games and then they take a day off. Oh, I can't play. Tom Thibodeau is coaching the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks are one of the surprises in the NBA. You know why? Because Tom plays the guys. He plays them longer minutes. He tries to win games. He makes them play defense. Hopefully, Billy Donovan can get this Bulls team to do the same thing. But until that happens, people say, hey, come on, LeBron's playing Durant, or come on, Brooklyn's playing such and such. Well, when Brooklyn plays, you don't know if Harden's going to play, or if Durant's going to play, or Kyrie Irving's going to play. When the Lakers play, is Antonio Davis going to be? How about LeBron? What's the point? I could do without the NBA. Not a fan. Haven't been for a long time. Love the Bulls. Love to see them get to the playoffs. I'd watch all their games. Local team. But I could not care less about the NBA. And the NHL, they're finally allowing fans to go to the United Center for the final 2 Blackhawks games on Sunday and Monday, and 4 Bulls games starting this Friday, May 7th. After all this time, they're finally allowing people to be indoors at the United Center. I don't know what took them so long. Every other team in the NBA, every other team I think in the NHL had fans throughout most of the season, except the Chicago Blackhawks. Next year, hopefully look forward to going. I don't know who wants to go see the Blackhawks. Basically, it's a fan appreciation day for fans who were not there all season long. Unbelievable. Anyway, I keep yapping. I got to finish my Maybach in my Guinness glass. It fits all the beers. Thanks to Fat Mike for jumping on in, talking about the Bears. And also thanks a lot to Tom and Allison from GoldFinger Brewing. A great, great place. I cannot wait for Thursday night. They got their collaboration, the Hefeweizen, coming out at Skeleton Key Brewing on Thursday night. If you're there and you see me, say hi. There's a really good chance I'll be there for at least 1, if not 2, because I love Hefeweizen. It's an awesome beer. So thanks a lot for tuning in to Huebs, Views, and Brews. Don't forget, if you miss it during the week on a Monday, you can always find me on Spotify. You can always find us on the YouTube channel. And don't forget to catch all of the 1252 Sports Chicago shows. They're all week long. You catch them on the YouTube channel at 1252 Chicago, 1252 Sports Chicago. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Got my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame shirt on. I might go listen to some because the Hawks are down 4-1. The Bulls are about to start, but I think cranking some tunes like my guy Fat Mike does, maybe some Black Sabbath or Zeppelin, might be a good thing to do on a Monday night. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week on Huebs, Views, and Brews. Thanks a lot.